to introduce you to if statements in Python. Without further ado, let us begin. So the first part we're going to be doing is introducing the if statements. So I'm going to we're going to begin with num1 equals 10. If num1 equals 10, print yes. Now what just happened here? How did it print out the yes? Well, the first thing we're going to look at is the first line and then go downward. So the first thing we're doing is assigning the variable, and the variable is num1 a value, and the value is 10. So we're basically saying that num1 equals 10. And we're going to use the variable and the variable to ask a question. So we're asking the question, and the two equal signs means equals to. So we're asking if num1 or 10 equals 10, and yes it does. And if it meets the criteria, we print the results, or yes. Now let's make this a bit more complicated. Now it starts off very similar. We're going to introduce num2. Now, the variable can be anything. The variable could be car, or dog, or boy, or just the letter A. It can be anything. But for right now, our intents and purposes, I'm going to keep things simple and consistent. Now I'm going to double the value of the variable to make it 20. We're going to ask it another question. If num2 does not equal 20, print hi. Now you're probably wondering why this code didn't do anything. Well, it's not because it's wrong. If it was wrong, an error message would have popped up. It's wrong because it's incomplete. Now, how is it incomplete? Well, I'm going to show you how. So first of all, you're assigning the variable, and the variable is num to a value, and the value is 20. We're going to ask we're going to ask the question. Asking the question, and the symbol means does not equal. So what we're asking here is if num2 or 20 does not equal 20, print the results. Now 20 equals 20, that is a fact. 20 equals 20. Now saying a number does not equal itself is false. So we're going to have to use an else statement. So what happened down here for it to print low? Well, if the conditions of the first question is not met, the else statement is used. When the conditions of the if statement is not met, the else statement is not used. Since this statement is false, then we use the else statement and print the results down here. Now you notice when I printed the yes and I printed the low, they're both in parentheses. That's what you have to do with printing. It wouldn't work if there were no parentheses or only one parentheses. Now let's introduce the elif statements. So we're going to have num3. Now the numbers I use can be anything. They could be 1 million, negative 1 billion, 0, 4/5. So I'm going to do it with negative 55.5. And once again, we're going to be asking a question. If num3 is greater than or equal to 0, print the cat is good. Like part 2, what I did is not wrong. If it was wrong, an error message would have popped up. It's just incomplete. Now I'm going to go over this again to show you where it went wrong. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to be assigning the variable or num3 a value, or negative 55.5. Now we're going to be asking a question with that variable. Asking the question, and this symbol means greater than or equal to. If number 3 or negative 55.5 is greater than 0, it's not. Negative 55.5 is much less than 0. So we're going to use an elif statement. Now what makes an elif statement different from an else statement? Because it will sound very similar. If the questions isn't met the first time, then the else and elif statement is used. But what makes them different? Well, with an else statement, it's just a means to print something. With an elif statement, you can ask a question. So elif num3 is less than or equal to 0. Print the cat is bad. So once again, we're assigning the variable num3 a value, negative 55.5, and we're asking a question with that. If num3 or negative 55.5 is greater than 0, which it's not, so we'd skip this and use this down here. So elif, or if, number 3 is less than or equal to 0, if negative 55.5 is less than 0, print the cat is bad. Since the second condition is true and the first is false, we print the second one. However, we can still add an else statement to this. I'm going to play around with this a little bit. The dog is great. Now here's something else you can do. If you put 3 quotation marks, you can space your printing results around the screen without any consequences. Like if this was just a single parentheses here and a single parentheses here, this wouldn't work. An error message would pop up. And now why would you want to put an else statement if you have an elif statement? Well, suppose you said if number 3 equals 0, so you're asking if negative 55.5 equals 0, that wouldn't work. So if both statements don't work, the else statement is used. If both questions conditions aren't met, use the else statement. You can also have multiple elif statements as well. So the first two conditions aren't met. So we're going to do elif num3 does not equal, say, 20, print a question mark sign a bunch of times. So here's how it works. The first condition isn't met, so it goes to the second condition, and that's not met. And then goes to the third condition, which is met, so you print that. Now suppose I change the if statement to if num3 doesn't equal 0, it would just print the first variable. But I'm going to move it back to its incorrect. Now what if I said if number 3 is less than 2 or equal to 0? Now, both elif statements are true, but it goes from top down. If the if statement is met, then the other statements aren't printed. If the first elif statement is met, then the second elif statement is not proven. And if the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, a millionth elif statements aren't printed, then the else statement's used. Even if all the elif statements are true, it starts at the top and goes bottom. So these both might be true, but it only prints the first one from the top down. Let's do part 4 using words. As I said earlier, your variable can be anything. So we're going to do color equals blue. Now with the numbers, I didn't have to put parentheses around them. But like the print area, you have to put parentheses around it too. So if color equals blue, print QWERTY, something really random. So once again, I'm not going to rewrite this in the notes because I've gone over it enough times. So we're going to assign the variable color a value which is blue, and we're going to ask a question, if color equals blue, print this. So our variable and value answers the question, so it prints the results. Let's put an elif statement in here. Suppose we said color doesn't equal blue. So we're going to do elif is blue is less than to equal to color, print red. Wait a minute. Give me a moment to think, please. Oh, I see. It's lowercase, not uppercase. So color equals completely capitalized blue. It does not equal partially lowercase blue. Once again, I ran into a simple error of it being lowercase when it should have been uppercase. Like these little small things will really mess you up in Python. So we set color equal to blue. And if color doesn't equal blue, well, that's false. So we go down to the elif statement and it prints a radical. Well, this is a less than or equal to sign. Blue is not less than color. That only works as numbers, but it is equal to. Like suppose it said elif 7 is less than or equal to 7, that statement could still run. 7 might not be less than 7, but it is equal to 7. And of course we can put an else statement here. Print 9. Now suppose we said blue doesn't equal color, it would print 9. And it's the same thing with the numbers. If the if statement is true, no matter how many elif statements are true, they're not printed. If the first elif if the if statement is false, then it goes to the first elif statement. And suppose you have 10 elif statements and all are correct, it would only print the first one. So since it goes from top down. And if the if and elif statements are false, then it's only the else statements. That's all I really have for you today. Thank you very much.